Welcome to today's deep dive. What if I told you that the company that will soon manage your sales pipeline, automate your company's software development, and literally run the underlying infrastructure of the internet?
Oh, and don't forget, build rockets to go to Mars.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. What if I told you it's the exact same company? Because for years, space exploration has been shrouded in this romantic vision, countdowns, humanity reaching out into the void, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
very sci-fi.
Very sci-fi. But today, we're pulling you out of the clouds and we are dropping you straight into the boardroom because the entity driving that exploration just executed, one of the biggest initial public offerings in history.
It really was massive.
It was.
Yeah.
So today we are dissecting SpaceX, which is now publicly trading under the ticker SPCX. And our mission for this deep dive is to decode this whole stack of incredibly revealing sources we got.
Yeah, we've got some fascinating material today.
We really do. We're looking at detailed SEC filings, comprehensive technical analyses of their new AI capabilities, and this super fascinating private journal entry from August 12th, 2026.
Right, written by an analyst who's just tracking the stock's absolute wild ride lately.
Exactly. And we're going to map out exactly how this company transformed from, just a rocket launcher into this vertically integrated launch, connectivity, and artificial intelligence juggernaut.
Yeah, and, looking at these documents, they paint a picture of a company operating on just a completely unprecedented economic plane. Like, we are no longer analyzing a scrappy aerospace startup here.
Not at all.
The June 2026 IPO fundamentally rewired the capital structure of this whole organization.
Right.
And when they priced at $135 a share, they brought in roughly $85.7 billion in net proceeds.
Wow.
Right. And then they layered on another $25 billion in notes on top of that.
I really want you, the listener, to just let the sheer gravity of those numbers sink in for a second. Because by the end of Q2, their total liquidity, meaning, cash equivalents, marketable securities, it hit roughly $100 billion.
$100 billion. It's just a staggering amount of capital.
It is. And the Q2 revenue surged to $7.814 billion, which is like a 92% jump year over year. But here is the massive twist in the SEC filing.
Yeah, this is where it gets crazy.
When you look at their free cash flow, it is deeply, violently negative. Like, in just the first half of 2026, their investing cash flow was negative $34.5 billion.
Yeah, and a staggering portion of that negative cash flow, I think about $28.5 billion, was purely capital expenditures, so CapEx. And that was deployed in a microscopic 6-month window.
Which is insane.
It really is. In
Yeah.
the traditional public markets, burning nearly $30 billion in half a year would typically trigger like an immediate shareholder revolt.
Right. The stock price would just completely collapse.
Ex-
Okay, let's unpack this with a thought experiment. Imagine you just won the largest lottery in human history, right?
Okay, I'm imagining it.
You have $100 billion sitting in your checking account. But instead of putting it in like a high-yield savings account or paying out dividends to your family, you sprint outside and spend $28.5 billion of it in 6 months on the heaviest, most complicated industrial and computational equipment on Earth.
Just immediately blowing a third of it on heavy machinery.
Exactly. It's an almost terrifyingly aggressive financial strategy.
It is. But what's fascinating here is the reason the public markets are tolerating this burn rate. It really comes down to what that capital is actually building.
Right. It's not just frivolous spending.
Exactly. This isn't wasteful spending at all. It's foundational infrastructure. So that CapEx is fueling the rapid iteration of the Starship program, the continuous launch cadence of the Starlink satellite constellation, and crucially, the construction of these gigawatt-scale AI data centers.
And gigawatt scale is huge.
It's massive. When we talk about deploying a gigawatt of power for AI compute, we're talking about securing land, building custom substations, securing these massive grid interconnects, and installing industrial cooling systems that literally rival small cities.
Wow.
Yeah, so analysts reviewing these filings, they fully expect free cash flow to stay negative through at least 2029.
Yeah.
Just because the sheer physical footprint required to support these ambitions is, that expensive to build out.
But, you don't build a factory that massive unless you already have buyers lining up for the goods, right?
You need a customer base.
Yeah, to justify burning through tens of billions of dollars in 6 months, there just has to be a guaranteed, rock-solid revenue pipeline on the other side.
And there is. The Q2 backlog figures totally confirm that demand.
Yeah.
It currently stands at $47.5 billion.
That's a huge backlog.
Yeah. And a significant pillar of that is government dominance. Like, the sources detail over $6 billion in recent Space Force and Department of Defense multi-year contracts alone.
Right. And the national security applications listed here, they are heavy hitters. Like the Space Data Network Backbone is a $2 billion contract by itself.
Which is massive for a single contract.
Exactly. Then there's the Airborne Moving Target Indicator, which the source is tied to the Golden Dome project. That one is sitting at over $4 billion.
Yeah, and for those unfamiliar, Golden Dome essentially utilizes a constellation of satellites to track moving targets. So vehicles, aircraft, vessels,
Literally anywhere on the globe.
right, anywhere in real time from orbit. It's an immense military capability.
It really is. But the real curveball in these SEC filings, the thing that completely pivots the narrative of this company, in my opinion, is the AI infrastructure.
Oh, absolutely, the cloud services.
Yes. They disclosed $14.1 billion in contracted sales derived purely from cloud services agreements.
Right, so SpaceX is leveraging those massive compute clusters we just talked about, those data centers packed with cutting-edge GPUs, and they are leasing out the compute capacity.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. They've signed multi-year AI compute leases with major industry heavyweights, notably Anthropic and Google.
Okay, wait, I have to push back here because this just seems totally backwards to me.
How so?
Well, SpaceX acquired xAI back in February, right?
Yes.
They are actively building Grok. They are literally trying to build frontier AI models to compete directly with Claude and Gemini.
Right, that's true.
So why on earth would they lease their incredibly valuable, super hard-to-build server capacity to Google and Anthropic? Aren't they basically just selling ammunition to their biggest rivals?
You know, it seems that way, but the strategy actually makes perfect sense when you look at the raw physics of data center scaling.
Really? How so?
Because SpaceX is building compute so aggressively. I mean, they're currently running at around 1.4 gigawatts and targeting multi-gigawatt levels. They've actually created a physical overhang.
A physical overhang, so they have more power than they can use.
Exactly. They literally have more compute capacity online today than their internal xAI training teams can efficiently utilize right this second.
Ah, okay. So it's about monetizing the excess power before it just goes to waste.
Precisely. This leasing strategy is the single biggest near-term dollar driver for their entire AI segment. I mean, it generated roughly $2.56 billion in Q2 revenue alone.
That is a lot of cash flow.
Right. And by leasing to rivals, they're effectively forcing their competitors to fund SpaceX's own colossal hardware expansion.
Wow, that is a chess move right there.
It really is. Furthermore, the infrastructure play doesn't just stop on Earth. The filings actually detail an exclusive hardware partnership with NVIDIA for, quote, Starmind AI satellites.
Starmind, and these utilize Vera CPUs and Rubin GPUs, right?
Exactly.
But, I mean, putting bleeding-edge GPUs into orbit just sounds like an absolute nightmare. Like, you don't have air in space to run cooling fans over the heat sinks.
Yeah, the thermal dynamics are incredibly challenging because in a vacuum, you can't rely on convection cooling like we do down here.
Yep.
So you have to use these complex liquid cooling loops. They basically transfer the heat from the GPUs out to massive external radiators, which then disperse the heat directly into the vacuum of space.
That sounds wildly complicated.
It is. And then you add in the requirement for radiation-hardened components to, survive cosmic rays. And you realize they are building a compute ecosystem that fundamentally reshapes orbital architecture.
Yeah, but, I mean, simply selling raw compute, whether that's on Earth or up in space, is ultimately a commodity business, right? Like, someone can always eventually build a cheaper data center.
That's true. Hardware margins always compress over time.
Exactly. So to command the kind of valuation SpaceX is chasing, they had to move up the stack. They had to own the software. And I think that brings us to the rapid integration of xAI and the rollout of Grok 4.5 this past July.
Yeah, the software layer is where the valuation paradigm shifts entirely away from traditional aerospace. According to the technical analyses in our sources, Grok 4.5 saw a massive immediate spike in real-world developer usage. And the catalyst wasn't just brand awareness, it was the unit economics.
The pricing is wildly aggressive. I mean, the sources show Grok 4.5 is priced at just $2 per million input tokens and $6 per million output tokens.
Which is just undercutting everyone.
It is, and this is where that vertical integration actually pays off. Because they own the power plant, the cooling, the data center, and the models, they can just undercut the market and pull in this massive wave of cost-conscious developers.
Right, but cheap tokens aren't enough to build an enterprise monopoly on their own,
True.
which is why the $60 billion acquisition of Cursor is arguably the most critical software move they've made.
Yeah, Cursor was already a beloved AI coding platform before all this.
Exactly. But by bringing it in-house, SpaceX integrated it with their internal infrastructure to create what they call Grok Build.
Grok Build, right.
And this platform basically enables the deployment of parallel coding agents.
Okay, for you listening, we really need to explain how this actually works because it's a massive leap forward. Like, you aren't just typing a prompt and asking an AI to write a single Python script anymore.
No, not at all. With Grok Build, when a developer submits a complex feature request, the system fans the job out. Like, it can spin up to 1,024 separate parallel agents simultaneously.
Wait, all working at the exact same time?
Yes, all at the same time. These agents are independently writing different modules, testing edge cases against each other, compiling the code, and debugging the errors in real time, in parallel.
That's unbelievable.
Right, and then it synthesizes the final product back to the human developer. It essentially compresses weeks of engineering work into just minutes.
And that infrastructure, paved the way for the brand new reveal from August 11, 2026, which is just yesterday based on these sources.
Oh yeah, the beta launch of Grokbot.
Yes, Grokbot. Now, it is extremely crucial to understand that Grokbot is not just a standard chatbot.
No, it's structurally very different. A standard chatbot relies on stateless API calls. You set a prompt, it generates a response, and the session essentially ends. It just waits passively for your next command.
Right.
But Grokbot fundamentally alters that architecture by utilizing a persistent cloud virtual machine.
Here's where it gets really interesting. So instead of thinking of it like a brilliant intern you can text for quick advice, Grokbot is more like a highly privileged system administrator who literally works for you.
That's a great way to look at it.
It has its own dedicated digital workspace. It securely signs into your company's Salesforce, your enterprise email server, your financial spreadsheets.
It acts on your behalf.
Exactly. You assign it an ongoing objective, you close your laptop, and because it lives on that persistent virtual machine, it executes those tasks autonomously, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the deliberate strategic shift here is moving away from chat interfaces, where consumer loyalty is famously fickle, and embedding directly into practical, automated enterprise workflows.
Right, making themselves indispensable.
Exactly. When a Grokbot learns the intricate, messy process of updating your specific company's CRM and runs it flawlessly every single night, the switching costs become impossibly high.
Yeah, you are not going to cancel that subscription.
Never. It generates massive, sticky ecosystem lock-in.
But how does it actually stack up against the current heavyweight in that space? Because the technical analysis mentions Gemini Spark as the primary rival right now.
Yeah, the competition is definitely fierce, and really, the architecture dictates the winner.
How so?
Well, if a company operates entirely within Google Workspace, so Docs, Sheets, Gmail, Drive, Gemini Spark, retains the edge, Google's native, deeply entrenched integration is incredibly difficult to disrupt from the outside.
That makes sense. They own the sandbox.
Right. However, Grokbot is rapidly emerging as the dominant tool for cross-application automation.
Ah, okay.
So if your workflow requires an agent to, say, scrape data from an independent bespoke CRM, migrate it into a proprietary internal dashboard, and then draft highly contextual emails in Outlook?
Right, moving between different ecosystems.
Exactly. Grokbot's persistent cloud VM environment allows it to navigate across those fragmented boundaries much more effectively than Spark can.
So if we zoom out for a second, we have this towering mountain of physical hardware, a multi-billion-dollar bedrock of national security contracts, and this AI software suite aggressively positioning itself as the global digital workforce.
It's a lot of moving parts.
It is. And when you merge these massive hardware and software bets, you get a market reaction that is both completely euphoric and deeply anxious at the same time. In fact, the private journal entry from August 12 calls this whole setup a powder keg valuation.
Yeah, and the post-IPO stock chart for SpaceX perfectly illustrates that anxiety.
Oh, it's been a roller coaster.
Completely. They debuted at $135 a share.
Wow.
And then the initial AI and space hype took over, driving the price near $225.
Wow.
But then gravity set in as the market digested the reality of the cash burn we talked about earlier, and it washed out down toward 105.
Just a massive swing.
Yeah, and now, in mid-August, The stock has clawed its way back, and it's hovering right around that initial 135 offering price.
Right. We have to translate some of the financial jargon here to really understand why the stock is behaving like a heart monitor.
Good idea.
So the market capitalization, meaning the total value of all the company's shares combined, is sitting at roughly $1.8 trillion.
A huge number.
It is. But their trailing revenue, which is simply the total revenue they've generated over the past 12 months, is only about $23 billion.
Right, and for anyone who doesn't spend their days staring at Bloomberg terminals, that relationship between market cap and trailing revenue is called a valuation multiple.
Yes.
And a $1.8 trillion valuation on just $23 billion in revenue is an astronomical multiple.
It really is.
It basically means investors are not paying for the company as it exists today. They are pricing in absolute perfection and extraordinary future growth. I mean, Elon Musk has explicitly stated internally that AI could soon represent 99% of the company's total value.
But a multiple that high leaves zero margin for error. None. Which brings us to the imminent binary catalyst sitting right on the horizon for them, the late August Starship flight. And we really cannot understate the stakes of this specific launch for the stock price. Like, this isn't just a standard engine test.
No, not at all. This orbital attempt is carrying actual Starlink V3 satellites. And, most critically, they're going to attempt to catch the descending upper stage of the rocket using the massive mechanical arms on the launch tower.
Like catching a building with chopsticks.
Pretty much, yeah.
The Starlink V3 detail is vital here, too. The V3 satellites are significantly larger and heavier than previous iterations, meaning they physically cannot be launched efficiently on the older Falcon 9 rockets.
Right, they need the volume.
Exactly. They require the massive payload bay of Starship to deploy at scale. If they can't get Starship to orbit, they simply can't scale the network required for their global data dominance.
And this raises an important question, which the journal entry actually highlights. It points out a profound tension.
What's that?
The constraint on SpaceX is no longer liquidity. They have $100 billion in the bank.
Yeah.
The sole constraint is execution.
Right.
They are simultaneously attempting two of the most difficult engineering feats in human history, developing artificial general intelligence and establishing the physical infrastructure for multiplanetary life.
Yeah, so if this Starship launch ends in a spectacular fireball tearing apart the launch tower, or if the impending Grok 4.6 software rollout is plagued with hallucinations, this $1.8 trillion stock could face a violent correction.
It would be brutal.
You simply do not get a pass from Wall Street when you are valued at nearly $2 trillion.
No, you don't.
But if they successfully pull off the tower catch, proving that rapid airplane-like reuse is possible, and they deploy the V3 satellites while Grokbots embed themselves into Fortune 500 workflows, it validates the entire thesis. Like, it could send the stock to the stratosphere.
Yeah, the financial markets are deeply attracted to this scale of ambition, but they ruthlessly punish failure when the price tag is this high. The capital is secured, yeah, but the physical physics of orbital mechanics and the complex code of parallel AI agents still have to execute flawlessly in the real world.
So what does this all mean for you? Why should you care about the capital expenditures and the valuation multiples of a newly public space company?
Because it's going to touch everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because SpaceX in August 2026 is no longer just a rocket manufacturer. They are a vertically integrated infrastructure monopoly in the making.
Yeah.
The enterprise software you use at your desk job, the global internet backbone you connect to, the AI agents that are starting to write your company's code, it is all increasingly originating from the exact same company that is forging the hardware to put humans on Mars.
We are witnessing the fusion of digital and physical infrastructure on a scale we just haven't seen since the dawn of the internet.
It's incredible.
It really is. They aren't just creating software models. They are aggressively building the power grids, the orbital data centers, and the telecommunications networks required to run that software entirely outside of the traditional tech ecosystem.
Which leaves us with one final, incredibly provocative thought to ponder, because the technical sources mention that the upcoming Grok 5 model is slated to be trained on the, quote, full historical corpus of SpaceX data.
Yeah, that stood out to me too.
Right. Combine that with the NVIDIA partnership putting Starmind AI compute directly into orbit. Up until now, artificial intelligence has been trained almost entirely on human Internet arguments, Wikipedia pages, digital code
So
repositories.
human language mostly.
Exactly. But what happens to an AI's fundamental reasoning capabilities when it is no longer just digesting human words, but is instead fed decades of raw, real-world physics data, global satellite telemetry, and the brutal mathematical realities of orbital mechanics?
It completely changes the foundation of its reasoning.
It does.
Oh.
Will the first truly groundbreaking superintelligence emerge not from a pristine terrestrial data center in Silicon Valley, but from the cold physical telemetry of the stars? We'll leave you to think about that one.